Hi, everyone. I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Bako Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Bako Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of our clients, Bako Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the profession. Bako Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Bako Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporaterelations@bakodx.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I meant to ask you, after we did that great workshop on Friday night at the college, didn't you have a big event with a bunch of kids doing gingerbread men or something?
Yes, gingerbread houses. We had 13 children over. It was the most fun chaos you could ask for. But yeah, it was a good success. The dads got to hang out and do whatever they do, and we got to make gingerbread houses and just holiday chaos and fun and jammies and hot cocoa and the whole thing. It's really an excuse for me to buy a bunch of treats and cookies and put them all out and not have to feel bad about eating them under the guise of child fun. Just a big
like
kid.
A plan. I remember those days.
Yeah.
Well, we have a wonderful episode for everybody today. I'd like to introduce a tremendous young leader in our profession, Dr. Javan Bass. Dr. Bass, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Gosh, we've been meaning to get you on the show for a long time, so it's finally happening. Dr. Bass, we're very informal on Dean's Chat. And if it's okay, let's go first names. Javan, Joe, and Jeff.
Excellent. I love that.
All right. Well, let me give you a little more formal, if you will, introduction. Javan did his undergraduate work at the University of Alabama, where he was a dual major in pre-med and finance. He got his podiatric medicine degree from Temple University School of Podiatric Medicine. He did 2 years of residency at Emory Medical Center and followed that up with 1 year of trauma training at Aria Hospital in Philadelphia. Javan is board certified by the American Board of Foot and Ankle Surgery, and he's a fellow in the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. He's also a consultant for Bako Diagnostics, which is a sponsor for ours. And also, you've been giving back a ton. You've given back a lot. You're currently the president of the Georgia Podiatric Medical Association. So we have a lot of things to talk about today. Thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I'm excited.
All right, well, let's get rolling.
Ready to have this discussion.
So the first thing that jumped out at me, Javan, was the fact that you were down in Alabama. You're a dual major, pre-med and finance. How'd you find your way to Temple?
Well, Alabama, my mentor, I had a mentor, went to my church back home, and, really good guy, Dr. Angelo Agee. He's down at the VA in Alabama. And Dr. Agee, I told him I wanted to be a physician, wanted to be a doctor. And he didn't do what most think that he did, which is take me to see other podiatrists. He actually took me to everyone. He wanted me to see every song and dance, the vascular guy, the orthopedic guy. I saw 4 or 5 doctors. He took me everywhere. And, but he also would allow me to, he would speak to my high school, and I was able to leave high school at noon and go watch him do surgery. And I'm gonna do this on Wednesday. Wow. And I was able to do this multiple times, and I just kept going back to that experience, even though he kept sending me out to other docs, but I was like, no, I want to do what you do, and it's just podiatry got its hooks in me, and I didn't look back, even though he kept sending me out. So I knew when I went to the University of Alabama, I wanted to be a podiatrist. And but I just didn't know exactly how to get there. My counselor told me to diversify myself. I said, I just want to major in biology like everyone. And she was like, no, you need to diversify yourself. So she was like, do something else. Go do history, English, business, math, something. And I was like, well, I like business. I want to start a business one day. And so well, there it is, do business. And so that's what I did. I majored in business, pre-med, and the rest was history. Yeah.
I've never heard anyone regret taking some accounting courses or some business courses.
Yeah.
It serves you well
Mhm.
throughout your whole life.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there was my best friend was an accountant, and my other really good friend owned a business. My brother owned businesses, so my grandfather owned a business. So it was always business was very deep rooted in me. I didn't mind getting out and working with or for someone, but at my heart, it was business. It was always business.
That's
And
great.
so, and just a little side note. Um, uh, at university, I was minoring in economics, and Dr. Daniel Arce, he was my economics professor. He brought me to the side. He said, "Listen, man, you're kind of good at this. Would you think about potentially being a teacher's assistant?" I was like, "Sure, that'd be awesome. Make a little extra money." And then I won the outstanding freshman academic achievement award in economics. And then he started to try to get me into the economics area. He wanted me to major in economics. He wanted me to be an economist, and I didn't have the heart to tell him. I waited to the last moment to tell him that I wanted to be pre-med, and I just felt like it broke his heart. And I tried to smooth it over, but I have a passion for business, but and I almost went that direction, but you know, Dr. AG again got his hooks in me, so yeah,
It's funny how we have deep-rooted passions and how our
yeah.
youth influences us, and then you get on a
Mhm.
path and you're going that direction. Not everybody does that, Joe. You didn't go that direct path either.
No, and it's been really fun to hear so many different origin stories. And very few people had that intention that you had, like, no, this is it for me.
I
And I
got to
think
do
it's really neat that you had high school mentorship, because again, that's also not something we've heard commonly.
Sure, sure. And just one more thing, I want to mention, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, we'd be riding in the car with my family and playing games. And my brother, my mom, my dad would ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I would say a policeman or a football player, or no matter what I did, my father would be in the front seat and he would say, "No, no, you're going to be a doctor." And then I would be 4 years old, same thing, doctor, 6, 7, probably around, and my mother would always give him a little side eye. Probably around 6 or 7, I started to say it, like, "Yeah, I want to be a doctor." But it took a while. But he just kept doing that. No, 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 you're gonna be a football player. You're gonna be a doctor. And so I think that passion ran really deep from a young age because of that.
It had to run deep because I've been trying to get my kids to be a podiatrist, and they've done everything but. So must
Mhm.
have been those Christmas Eves in the hospital or something, or Christmas days doing surgery. Who knows? But that's
Mhm.
awesome that that happened for you. So how'd you end up at Temple?
Again, Dr. Ag. Dr. Ag went to the Ohio school, and he has a passion for the Ohio school. But I think around that time, when he was in school, maybe Temple was really influential. And so I asked him, I said, "Where do you think I should go?" And even though he went to the Ohio school, he's like, "Ohio is a good school, but I want you to go to Temple. I think you should go check those guys and gals out up there." And so that's what I did. I interviewed at the different schools, but I was trying to, stay the course. Well, he hasn't led me astray yet. And so, yeah, that was kind of and then I went up there and I enjoyed the campus. I liked what I saw. And so, yeah, that's the decision I made. But it was really Dr. Agee saying, "I think you should go up that route." Yep.
Are you still in contact with Dr. Agee?
Oh, we talk all the time.
Oh,
Absolutely.
really?
Oh, yeah, we talk all the time. I got married in January. I made sure he was there. You know, um, you know,
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Sometimes he'll have students that will come through the VA and that are relocating to Atlanta or to Georgia, and he'll always make sure that he connects me with them. And so I'm always trying to give back that way as well. So he'll send, "I want you to look out for this person, that person," and so I'll usually try and connect with them and kind of do a little guidance. The same thing he did for me. But yeah, we talk all the time.
Oh, that's
And I
great.
always try to go back and lecture at the Alabama, Podiatric Society meeting, and he's always there. So
Oh my gosh, that's great. So it was instilled in you early to
early.
give back to the profession and
Oh yeah.
bring future docs along.
Oh yeah. He would always say it. Give back. Be a mentor. Each one teach one. So deep, like very early. He was like, "Listen, this is your duty. This is your duty. This is not, podiatry is a gift. He really instilled that into me as well, that this profession is a gift. Not just being a doctor, but a podiatrist specifically. And so, you need to retread that gift. You need to, shine light on that gift. And so, I've had a passion, for podiatry for a while, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Joe, it seems like whenever we interview guests that are super enthusiastic and energized by our profession, many of them have been trained in a hotbed of podiatric medicine. Joe was at Kaiser in San Francisco, and I was at Kern back in the day, and you made your way down to Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
How could you not be totally immersed, right?
Correct, correct. When I was in school, I didn't know where all the residency programs were. And one of my classmates, and if she's seeing this, shout out to Rudy. So Rudy, so Rudy, so I was like, we were I was doing like it was teachers, not teachers, work study in the library. No, the computer lab, and so was Rudy. And I was just on the computer, Rudy, where are all the good residencies? I don't know. How do I navigate this? What do you know? And Rudy went and did some research, and then I get an email probably like a week later. I forgotten this conversation, and then she knows she knew I was from Georgia, and then it was titled Dream Residency. This is for you, right? She knew my mentality, she knew my my mindset, and she knew where I was from. She was like, Atlanta, Dream Residency. And so there was all this information on Atlanta. I was like, oh yeah, that's it right there. And so then I would come and visit Atlanta, and I knew like that's where I got to be. I have to be in Atlanta. I was born in Columbus, Georgia, but I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. So I have ties to Georgia. So I was overjoyed that there was a residency close to home that, did the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be well trained. I knew I wanted to open a business. And so in my mind, from a business perspective, I didn't want to have to turn anyone away. That's kind of where my mindset was. I don't want to turn anyone away. I don't want to have this procedure that I can't do and have to send them somewhere else. Like I need to be able to help everyone because I'm going to be by myself.
Fabulous. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, and actually, as you were just saying that, I'm curious some of the things that you learned in your business part of your degree. How did you find crossover or applicability? What were some of the key things, maybe in the beginning or even now, that you see the utility in that?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're, they always say it. It's so cliche, right? When they say they don't teach you business in medical school. It doesn't matter what doctor it is, what specialty. They all say that. And so, especially when you're running a business, you feel that way. Being able to detail a spreadsheet, point of sale, reordering, just organizing all those things in your head. I have friends that are partners in their practices. As partners, there's still an office manager they look to, do this, do that, and being able to run a business. I actually taught my biller how to bill. I taught my office manager my office manager was never an office manager. I just trained her in that role. And so all of those front office areas of ordering, everyone has a different job, ordering, scheduling, making sure the bills are paid and those types of things, and scaling, just trying to scale my business. Marketing, we have a whole section on marketing, and I use those sessions. I don't just go to, billboards and commercials. I do a little bit of everything. And so really just run. I don't look at this as a medical office. I look at this as a business, and that's just from school. Scaling, teaching, and training everyone to do what I do, so that I don't have to do it anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, and I can certainly see that because again, and again, this might be a kind of generically broad statement, but many of the very successful people in private practice, they seem to have had some kind of business interest or affiliation or minor, or sometimes even a whole degree, depending on, again, who we're talking about. And you can see how that helps kind of set them up for success. And not to say that, again, that's what you need to do in order to be successful in private practice, but having, to your point, people that are mentors, people that could reach out and say, hey, I'm wanting to do this and I see your model and you seem to be successful. Can we have coffee one day and just kind of pick your brain about the things that you think are the most valuable for me to know? What are your thoughts on mentoring people in the field of opening practice and business?
One of my mentors actually told me, he says, listen, every organization, a mentor says, I say it was the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. Every business goes through an upswing and a downswing, follows a kind of a bell curve. And every business does well and then it fails. And what you have to do is you have to stay in front, from an economist's perspective, supply and demand, reading the tea leaves, and you have to reinvent yourself on the way up, right? So you have to reinvent yourself on the way up. If you wait until you're on the downswing, first of all, you won't know it, and you're going to, jump off into the abyss. So you have to reinvent on the way up. And one of my mentors told me, so you have to pay attention to the tea leaves. You have to pay attention to the ebbs and flows in your neighborhood. You just can't keep your head in the sand. You have to know what's going on insurance wise. I have a spreadsheet that literally just lists all of the new insurances that are coming into Georgia, into Atlanta, into Georgia. And so right now I have an entire list of all the insurances that are coming into Georgia for 2025. So my office manager knows the insurances that she needs to meet those insurance representatives so we can get on those plans. I'm not waiting for a patient to come to me and say, hey, are you on this insurance? And well, no, we're not. I'm sorry. You have to go find another doctor. I want to already be on the insurance panel, when they show up. So again, just planning and reinventing yourself and, reinventing on the way up because we want to survive. I'm a single owner, you know what I mean? And, one of the things I want to talk about is all of the silos, all of the different silos, the way that young practitioners silo themselves into thinking one train of thought. It happens in residency often. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens. And you have to be able to think outside of the box because we're not diversifying with practices. Practices are gobbling up other practices. Those practices are being gobbled up by other practices, and which leads to less options, right? So if you're a single practitioner like myself and you don't want to get gobbled up, you better be ready to reinvent yourself, okay? Or you won't last. You won't last.
I think
cliches are cliches because there's an element of truth to them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that old saying, you either make it happen, watch it happen, or wonder what happened.
I'm telling you, that's right. Proactive. You have to be proactive around here. If I get caught flat-footed, my office manager knows that I'm going to be like upset. She loves and also hates when I go to conferences because whenever I go to a conference, it doesn't matter where the conference is. And most of the time I'm lecturing at that conference. But she hates when I go to a conference because she knows her phone is going to be blowing up with me texting her. We have to do this. We have to do this. We call this person, this, I want you to look into this. I mean, she knows it's going to happen. And, when I walk into the office, she kind of cuts her eye at me like, you just went to a conference, didn't you? You're like, I sure did. So let's go. Let's go. And, 50% of it will go nowhere. But I'm sending those emails, those texts. Hey, look at this. I have reps calling the office, ask for Ashley, ask for Ashley, and so, because I'm always trying to reinvent myself.
So I guess this might be a nice time to kind of segue just a bit because owning a practice and a business in and of itself is more than a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
But then you are so involved in the state with the Georgia Podiatric Medical Association and nationally with the American Podiatric Medical Association. How do you find time to do it, and what's the motivation and the passion there?
Yeah, I think again, just I had to scale my time, because I'm still very involved with my family. I love my family. I know I just got married, I love to travel. And so I really have to be intentional about my time. The GPMA is very important to me, the profession in general, but specifically here in Georgia. When I first got to Georgia, there were, again, lots of silos, lots of people on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. And I wanted to kind of be a bridge, we can get into a little bit of that later, but I think in Georgia specifically, we were kind of a sleeping giant. We have a very good scope law, right? Very good. But we got that scope law a long time ago. It literally says foot and leg, right? Very good scope law in Georgia, and I think with having such a great scope law, we weren't as intentional about doing some other things. We just kind of like, well, we got the scope law. We're awesome in Georgia. And so when I first got here, great people were a part of the Georgia board. But I think that it's always good to, again, reinvent yourself. Maybe you're the one that's helping to reinvent some things. Very smart people on the board, but they know how I feel. I think there was some comfort there, and whenever I see comfort, then I know that there's a problem. I don't think you should always trend towards comfort. You should trend towards being uncomfortable, right? Because you need to always be trying to reinvent yourself. And so for me, it's a passion. And when I have a passion, it's not work. I tell my mother all the time, I do a lot of this for free. I would lecture for free, and when consulting happened, I wasn't even looking forward for that. I wanted to lecture and talk to people, teach these principles. And also I would do it for free. And when you're working, doing something you love, it's not hard. You just make time. You just be intentional about that time. It's actually more, it's actually harder for me now being in the office. It's harder being in the office. Yeah.
Joe, you and I talk about building bridges all the time, and it sounds like Javan has been experiencing that in Georgia within the profession. That's a big challenge for all of us, or any profession probably. Your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I think you really hit it when you said the silo idea. It's so easy, certainly too, in a private practice, a solo practitioner, or even maybe just a small one or two, maybe three podiatrists together. To your point, everything is merging and condensing.
Yeah.
And when you don't want that, if that's not the vision of where you're going to go, it can feel really isolated and you don't always feel like you have the same. I mean, business is hard. So having someone to talk through, man, this is stuff that's hard. But then businesses can also be really rewarding. And like, let's talk about that too. And you feel isolated where you can't talk to somebody. And if nothing else, I know that was one of the best things when I was in practice with a partners. She and I could like talk to each other and commiserate and also build each other up to your point, these cyclical natures of how things go. And that's nice. And so if you are alone, I loved your idea of if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling alone and you either need help or just want someone to talk with, what are your recommendations for maybe new providers or young practitioners? Where do they go to reach out to find those kinds of communities?
Yeah, I think everyone always draws on their mentors.
Mhm.
Obviously, I mean that's the easy answer. I was talking to my wife the other day. She's a podiatrist as well,
Oh,
and I asked her just on the spot. On the spot. I said, "Oh, what did you learn?" She has 4, 5 doctors she works with, and a few of them she doesn't work with as much. I asked her. I said, "What is the most important thing you learned from this doctor?" Okay, and then she answered. I say, "Okay, well, what about this one? And what about this one?" And she had to think about, but she had great answers. I was like, I see that's amazing. I said, so when they retire, when Dr. So and so retires, I want you to remember that answer, right? And maybe bring that up at his or her retirement speech, because she got great answers. And then she turned it right back on me. She says, what did you learn from this person? What did you learn from Dr. Rook, Dr. Kamasta? What did you learn from Dr. Fleming? And I had to do the same exercise.
yeah.
And so I think that just like running a business, right? You never turn that off. So I'm not always potentially going to someone specifically. Yeah, I'm just always looking for the information. So whenever I'm speaking to someone, I don't waste that opportunity. If I'm speaking to one of the board members, I'm not wasting that opportunity. If I'm speaking to nurses at the hospital, I'm not wasting that opportunity. I had an issue at the hospital the other day, and I asked to speak with the CMO. I didn't waste that opportunity. So I'm talking about business of the hospital. I just don't waste those opportunities. So the easy answer is your mentors. The easy answer, but I'm just always looking for what I can learn. And if we have a post-production meeting after this call, Joe, I'm going to be talking to you. I'm going to be asking you asking you questions. I just don't waste those opportunities. So I'm trying to get
Yeah.
information from everyone. And I have reached out to people that have become mentors. One of my biggest mentors, Dr. NGL Kashab. When I was a resident here in Atlanta, Angie, she ran a small office, but Angie is someone that I would talk to, and she gave great advice. And so I kept calling her and asking her tips, quips, and pearls, and she kept answering the call. And one of the most important things in my young life as a business owner that she ever said to me, she's like, Javan, I want you to remember something. You're going to start this practice, and there are going to be times when you're going to feel like you're going to run out of money. Just remember my words. You're not going to run out of money. It's going to be okay. Just remember that. Just always remember you're not going to run out of money. And early in my career, I had to think about that. And so yeah, I just don't waste those opportunities, and I try to look for tips from everyone, from everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much we can learn from so many different
Everyone.
fields,
Yep.
specialties.
And I can tell you one more. I'm sorry, I don't mean
Yeah.
to cut you off. But at the residency program, those high octane residency, big procedures. And there was a doctor that came in, didn't work with us very much, but was big into wounds. And I'm like, that's a wound. I want to do this triple. I want to do this IM nail. It's just a wound. And it was an amputation we were doing. And I made the cut really quick, and I didn't make it very even.
Mhm.
And I remember she kind of leans back and she says, Javan, or she's Dr. Bass. She says, don't be mediocre. That was mediocre.
Mm.
That cut was not even. And this was one of the doctors I was looking at. Oh, this is just the wound care doc.
Yeah.
I have Dr. Camasto over here. This is a simple. And when I made that cut and I saw what she was talking about. She was like, don't be mediocre.
Yeah.
And I was like, no one has ever called me mediocre before. But the fact that she said it, and she was so true, and it really stuck. It stung and it stuck. And that was one of the best lessons I could have learned as a young doc at the program. Like, you have to pay attention to the details and treat every patient, treat every doctor like they're the most, the prestigious doctor. Like, don't relax just because
Yeah.
you think someone may not be trained the way you're trained. So, yeah, lessons you can learn from anyone. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I love that. And, you're absolutely right. It's so interesting. Sometimes the best lessons you've learned are from people maybe you didn't expect to learn them from. So I love that example you gave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's humbling. I
Indeed.
needed to be humbled. I love that. I needed that. I love that. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
funny, Joe and I were talking about that this morning, how when you're a third year resident and you're on top of the world, but the patients are someone else's patients, it's a different story than when you first get into practice and you're starting to treat your own patients and you don't
Yeah.
have that backup. Advice to young docs clinically. I know we've been talking about business, but
Yeah.
clinically.
Yeah.
Clinically, oh man, I love so, speaking in terms of silos again. I hate silos, silo of thought. Clinically speaking, that's why I have such a passion for Bako, because I learned something at a meeting at a little mini conference at a restaurant, and I was terrified. Just learning, we can get into this a little bit later, but just learning all of the different um, clinical mistakes I was making when it comes to, skin pathology and cancer and that sort of thing. And so I would say it terrified me. And I said I had to learn this because again, coming from the program, all surgery, big surgery, bone, muscle, joint, screws, and that sort of thing. So to a young practitioner clinically, do not silo yourself. And that includes and siloed as far as thoughts and narratives, as far as what you need to learn or thinking of what you're going to be doing when you get out. You have to make sure that you are incorporating asking for information from all different types of docs. Right. If you're looking for a job, making sure that you're speaking to all different types of doctors, right? Making sure that you want to learn all of the information. When I came out, I knew that I was a big bone muscle joint person. The first conference I paid my own money to go to was DEF CON, which was wound care. I have to learn wound care. I have to do this. Like I can't be because I'm thinking from a business perspective. And when you go to a really high powered program, you often think you don't need to do that because the money will find you because you're so good. But when you're working for yourself, you have to be able to treat all the patients. And so I think that was a good lesson, not siloing myself. And also, even before you come out, don't silo yourself relative to who you speak to. I would look at the residents' contracts, and I told them, I said, listen, you guys are talking to the same docs that are coming to find you for a contract. The most lucrative contract that I've ever seen was from one of the doctors over there at the VA. All right. That not going to the Podiatry Institute meetings, but going to the GPMA meetings. She asked me to look at her contract, the most lucrative contract I've seen. And, she wasn't trained as good as you guys. Right. So again, because she's opening herself up to being, you know, jobs from everyone and not siloing to say, well, I'm only going to try to get jobs with these types of doctors. Listen, don't silo yourself. All right. Just don't. Diversify, diversify, diversify. The same thing my counselor told me. Diversify
Yeah.
yourself.
We could go down the rabbit hole on every single one of these topics. Um, I want to come back to Bako in a little bit, but
Yep.
we've talked some about business, we've talked some about clinical. Let's talk about politics for a second. You're the president of the Georgia Podiatric Medical Association. How does that translate locally as a delegate representing your state at APMA? How does that
Sure.
come together?
So for me, I'll always tell the docs here, in Georgia that there's so much going on nationally, all right? But what's more important than is what's going on here locally, but again, locally we have to follow the trends of what's going on nationally. All right, when I go to the House of Delegates, when I go to the HOD meetings, I'm talking to the other practitioners about what's going on in their states. I'm talking to the other doctors. How are you all getting paid to take call? Like, how did you do that? How did you make, because we need to do that in Georgia. What are you all doing about these um, Humana issues with skin substitutes, how they're using different rules in Medicare and they're clawing back. What did you guys do to fight that? So it's not so much because it's not the same issues. It's like watching your local news versus CNN or Fox News, right? It's local. It's going to be different issues. It has to be. But again, you can't waste those opportunities. So when I'm around all of these bright minds in DC, right, I'm bringing these issues up and I'm talking and I'm connecting and networking and meeting as many people as I can meet, getting as many cards as I can get because we have very similar issues in Georgia. And some of them ask us, well, how did you get that law? How did you get the scope law that says foot and leg? Like, what did you do? And so yeah, so it's really a networking opportunity. There's always crossover. We do a gala every year. Well, not every other year. It's the President's Gala in Georgia. So I'm the new president. So my gala is coming up in February. So we're going to invite a couple of members we're going to invite the CEO, Megan McClellan. We're going to invite the new incoming APMA president. And so, bring them down. Now, yeah, these are local issues, but we're always calling APMA saying, listen, we have an issue here. We'd like your guidance. So I want them to be here to see what's going on, what legislative victories we've had. I need you to understand what's going on because I'm going to be calling you about this, looking for guidance. So I'm putting everybody on the spot. So no one gets to just rest comfortably when I'm around, whether it's the PAC board, I'm on the PAC board as well, whether it's APMA, whether it's Megan, whether it's the GPMA board here, I'm always trying to challenge, all right? Again, moving away from comfort. If I'm comfortable, then there's an issue. I remember like my third or fourth year, I was out there in my office and all of these, you know, uh, patients came through and it was the same thing. It was like ingrown nails, ingrown nails. And I love ingrown nails and nails. But I was thinking like, wait a second, like where's the challenge? What's happening? Where are all my patients? Where are my bunions? Where's the other stuff? Because I got too comfortable. Whenever I get comfortable, I get nervous. So yeah, when I'm in DC, I'm just talking to people and asking. And I think that's the biggest benefit to me and our members is I'm trying to get information when I'm in DC. Yeah.
Absolutely. Joe, your thoughts on local politics and national politics?
Yeah. And, I'm also curious. I know you've also been really involved with young members locally. Can you talk a little bit about, again, it can feel so isolated sometimes. As Dr. Jeff had said, we were talking, your third year, you feel like you're on top of the world. You've got this. You're so excited. And then about 2 to 3 months out, you realize, shoot, I should have asked more questions in this, or, oh man, if I have to underdo it or overdo it on this particular thing, which way do I go? Why didn't I ask these things? And to
Yeah.
your point, you can always reach back out to your mentors and they're incredibly helpful. But something like business,
Yeah.
you may be in a completely different setup and your mentors may have no experience to help you in that regard. So can you talk a little bit about what the Georgia Podiatric Medical Association has done for young members?
Absolutely. So when I came on the scene, I wasn't nominated to the board. All right. I asked one of my mentors, Dr. John Wright. I said, "How can I get involved? I just want to be involved." He was like, "Well, you're going to be involved. You got to get into the room. You got to come to the business meeting." So I came, and they were up for elections, and I asked, "Does anyone want to nominate themselves from the floor?" I raised my hand, and I got up, and that was part of my pitch. I said, "We need more youth involvement, young physician involvement. We need more people speaking. We need more people involved on the board. We need more people." So that was kind of one of my pushes. So what I've done and what we've done, I was just talking to Jeff about the young physician mixer. We want to start doing that every year to try to interconnect these fellows, these residents, new doctors that are new to Georgia, because you can be here for 3, 4, or 5 years and never go to a GPMA meeting and not meet anyone. You just got your head down, you're trudging along, and it keeps happening where I keep meeting these doctors that I think just got here and they've been here for 5 years. It drives me crazy. So, so what I've done is I've initiated this young physician mixer, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sponsored by anyone. The GPMA will pay for it. We just have to make sure we get all the young doctors together, right? Also, I think we're unfair to young docs sometimes where we'll say, well, why aren't you getting involved? And why aren't you finding me as a mentor? Why aren't you asking me questions? We had this meeting and none of you raised your hand. It's not fair because sometimes you don't know what a good question is. You don't know if it's awkward. So I go and seek them out. Okay. I go and find them and say, hey, I'm the PAC liaison in Georgia. I need a young member liaison. Would you like to do that, Shaz, Glory? Shaz, it says absolutely. I go to Portia. I say, Portia, we have a young physician opening, for a young physician board member. Have you thought about running? So I actually go to these doctors and they'll tell you, I'm seeking them out. I'm asking them to help on the committees. I'm asking them to lecture. I'm asking them to be on the board. I'm asking them to work with the PAC. And so I think we're sometimes unfair to them, but you have to make sure that you open up that line of communication so they feel comfortable in the future. And some of them do. They say, well, and they come to me and say, hey, how can I get involved in so and so? Because I've already asked them to be involved in the past. I think we need to stop putting up roadblocks for our young members and start asking them and stop being so nervous that if we move them in, it's going to move us out.
Yeah.
If a young member moves me out, good job. Move me out, right? But you're going to have to work as hard as I work. So, yeah.
They'll move you out into the board of trustees at APMA.
There you go. Move me out. Take my role. If you can come with it, let's go. But I think sometimes we shy away from mentoring or really engaging because we feel like, well, it's going to be less room for me to help if I bring somebody else in here. I don't know, but that's just a hunch.
This might be a good time for me to do a shout out to our sponsor, Bako Diagnostics. We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bako Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bako Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. Javan, we touched base on Bako a little bit before. I can tell you from an educational perspective, they've been coming to our course at the university in dermatology and putting on workshops and biopsies and debridements and just really giving back to the students. And I know they do it at the resident and, of course, the attending level. Your thoughts on Bako?
Yeah. I think for me, again, that willingness to want to teach that next generation. For me personally, again, it saved my practice because when I went to that meeting at that restaurant, the pathologist that was speaking to us, I was left terrified. All of the pathology that I was missing, people that I needed to call my office manager, I need you to call this patient to get them back in. I was terrified. And I thought to myself, wow, we are so exposed, or I'm so exposed. So when they came calling and said, hey, because then I really started doing biopsies, I really started, really, really, really getting involved. And they saw how things were moving in my practice and they approached me, say, hey, might want to work with you. What do you think? I was like, yeah, it's great. And so I love teaching. I have a heart for teaching. And so for me, it was a perfect partnership, and I think one of the reasons why I've stuck with them so long is they're very intentional about teaching the next generation. Again, I've said it multiple times. I do not like when young doctors get siloed in thought. I'm going to do well. I'm just going to do these surgeries. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to put in multiple ankle. I love doing ankle replacements, but that's a silo of thought if you think you're just going to make a good living doing that. And it doesn't matter if you're working for yourself. Doesn't matter if you're working in a business. Doesn't matter if you're working in a big orthopedic group. At some point, you're going to have to qualify those bonuses. Okay. And if those surgeries start drying up a little bit, if those you better have a way to pay for that bonus you're getting. And so it's not just protecting your patients and protecting yourself medical legally, but it's also practice management. So I've been very happy with Bako. I mean, they've definitely given me the opportunity to speak to young doctors and to speak to students and to, engage them thought wise, and to make sure they understand as students. And we catch them early. We don't just catch them out after. I'll talk to older doctors as well, but I love that we get to catch them early in medical school, Arizona school, to all the schools, because I can kind of put that in there because no one did that for me. I started a practice and I was working for 2 or 3 years, letting pathology melanoma walk out the front door. Okay. So catching them as a student, it kind of puts that plug in their ear. And I give them all my email address and my phone number. If you have any questions, give me a call. So very passionate about Bako. And I know there are other labs that work hard to do this. I just don't believe that anyone is doing it as intentionally as Bako is doing it. Yeah. I'm very, 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 very thankful.
Absolutely. Joe, you had a similar experience.
Yeah, it was so funny when you were mentioning that about, all these surgeries and I'm going to do surgery and that's where my focus is. And, I
Oh,
had a similar,
Kaiser.
yeah.
Kaiser, yeah.
Well, and,
Mhm.
and we didn't even see dermatology. It went to the dermatology department. Like if somebody came in with anything derm related, they almost didn't even make it through the door because they would get rerouted to a different department. So it was interesting when I transitioned to a private practice where it was just like, this is, to your point, I had gone to, knowing that that's where I was transitioning, I had gone to a specific group of meetings through IFAF. Again, it could have been any meeting, but Bako was there and one of the speakers was talking about um, what are they talking about? Acral lentiginous melanoma. And it
Yeah.
was that
Oh, yeah.
moment. Yeah. That
Mhm.
moment where, just like you said, where I'm like, this is like something like I know of this, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know this. I don't feel to your comfort that I am not comfortable with this. I don't really understand the workups for this. And then what I really appreciated, and you touched on this as well, it's not just about doing something or doing a technique or taking a biopsy or even reimbursements. Like if we really just get down to the granular, I will spend hours putting together evidence-based lectures on what kind of fixation to use, right? But I
Mhm.
will empirically treat derm stuff because it's out of my comfort zone, not because it's the right way to do it. And so what I really appreciated was like, I need to reevaluate. Just like you said, I had gotten very kind of narrow-minded in my approach to the medical part of what we do, especially when it came to dermatopathology, or pododermatology, we'll say, because it just wasn't in my
Yeah.
wheelhouse as much. But that's not an excuse. That's not an answer. That's not an excuse. And I wouldn't have accepted that for so many other parts of what I did. So then you'd start to go down the rabbit hole, right? And to your point, like I just started to get like, I need to understand, like, who do I even start to reach out to? Where do I even go? And everything that I started to look at, Bako was a big supporter and they were so helpful to me. And I just appreciated being able to call and ask kind of stupid questions like, Hayes and my partner at the time, she had done the fellowship in Atlanta or Alpharetta, and so
Yep.
she
Yep.
was a great resource to be like, hey, Jessica, what would you do with this? Like,
Mhm.
and again, so much of what we do is evidence based. It's
Yep.
precision medicine. It's getting accurate diagnosis. It's not just trying a bunch of stuff until you figure out what worked or what didn't, or oh, great, it just resolved on its own, or maybe it's not resolving. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's really like let's answer the question. Let's get to the bottom of this and let's treat it the same way that dermatology would treat it. And I really appreciated that it was also your experience. So
Yep.
to all the young members out there, again, I would just emphasize there's no way to get everything in residency.
Mhm.
And our residency programs are wonderful, but it's okay to have areas of gap, maybe that you're like, ooh, I'm not as comfortable with this. But being okay with not being comfortable isn't the answer. And I think you kind of mirrored that too. Like reach out, get involved, ask questions, go to conferences, fill those gaps for yourself because we are lifelong learners. We're here to continue to get better, not to just get comfortable and become irrelevant.
Move away from comfort.
Yeah, move. And only as you get older do you realize how hard that can be, which I
Absolutely.
guess would be my next question for you. So, as you have gone through different phases of your career, what are some of the things that you have found the most difficult to kind of overcome in terms of, oh, but I'm kind of comfortable here and I'm not really ready, wanting or ready to expand? If you're
Mhm.
willing to share some of those vulnerable moments.
Yep. I would probably say, forcing myself to idle down.
Mhm.
Actually, it's not a career wise. I'm locked and loaded into the mentality of seeking more information, getting more information, becoming involved in different ways. And there's certain things I don't do. Like I don't go necessarily to the hospitals, and I'm not trying to be the chief of podiatry. I leave that alone, right? It's just you're spreading yourself too thin. Like I love the local politics, I love the national politics, I love consulting, I love teaching, I love lecturing, and I love doing surgery, right? I love practice management. So I kind of stick there. And I think, and I'm wired that way, but I think that making sure that I'm idling down and protecting my mental health, as it pertains to my wife, my family, I think that's the vulnerability for me.
Yeah.
Is that how much do I need to idle down to make sure that I'm not stressed out, or I'm not, that I'm giving 100% to my wife, to my family, to my mother, calling my father, calling my brother, calling my nephew, just making sure that I'm involving them into all of this and not overdoing it. And even before I was married, I was like, okay, I have to do this the right way. I have to idle down in the right areas, but not leave myself vulnerable where I feel like I'm not doing enough. So
Yeah.
I think that's the vulnerability for me, just always keeping that balance. And I'm working on that every day, and I'm always checking in with my wife, like, how am I doing? You good? She's like, yeah, yeah, sometimes I'll take her to a meeting with me, and that sort of thing. And I make sure that we do our vacations. I make sure I call my parents. I make sure I call my brother. So I think that, as young hotshot surgeons and great practice managers and political advocates, we have to make sure that we are focused on our personal lives as well and our mental health, and making sure that we're connecting with the people that love us, and not getting too far away from that, because your career should not define you.
Yeah.
There are other things that should define you, not your career. I think your family, your loved ones, your faith, that sort of thing should define you.
I think that's a really wonderful thing to highlight, because I think that's certainly another thing too. We've seen all this stuff about burnout, and we've all kind of gone through different phases and experiences with that. And so it is more normal now to talk about that. And I think that that's really good. I don't think that burnout wasn't happening before. I think it absolutely was. Certainly when I've talked to, older providers, they can mirror that, like, oh yeah, we went through these things, but it just wasn't really talked about. But it can feel very isolating when it's happening to you. And even when you hear about like burnout and all this stuff, and I think it's interesting, as I've talked to some younger people, especially when they start having families, to your point, where there are now so many new demands on your time that you don't even realize or recognize that it's happening. And so having the opportunity to say, you know, it's okay to protect your time. It's okay that you can't do everything right now. And so to your point, there was a great quote, and I'm probably going to ruin it, but something to the effect of, true leadership is not nailing every role. It's choosing the roles that you are going to nail, something like that. And it was just, I thought that was so powerful, right? So as you have been picking the roles, and you already highlighted a bunch of these, so thank you for helping me transition my thoughts to where I wanted to ask you, because with all the different things that you've been involved with, where do you think the future is for you? Like, what are the things that you're the most excited about in the, I don't know, we'll go 5 years, next 5 years?
Oh yeah, I love that question. So for me, I love those things, the political advocacy and all of that. But the one thing I've gotten so comfortable in my practice, where it has legs now. I don't have to focus so much on it, and we do well here. But now I'm ready to grow it. Here's the thing, we have a lot, like I said before, a lot of practices gobbling up other practices. And one of the things that, because I'm not here a lot, I'm on the road, I'm lecturing, I'm here and there. But I think in the next 5 years, I really want to grow the practice. I want to show that it can be done. There's a lot of practices. I have a lot of buddies around the country, and you all probably know about some of these practices that are going venture capital, like they're getting bought. It's happening. Some of them I'm a little sad about because they were stalwarts in the community, and they're going away, and I want to prove really to the young docs that, and I'm okay with that. And I'm not saying that I won't go venture capital one day. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, that this is my current challenge, is growing my practice and showing the young doctors that you can have a practice, you can be in a small group. It's the best decision I've ever made in my life, right? My faith, finding my wife, and starting a practice. Best decision I've ever could have made in my life. And I'm so happy with it. So I wanted young doctors to know that you can start a practice in this world and you can grow it. So in 5 years, I want to start, because I've hired a doctor before. I want to hire more. I want to expand and show that you can actually do it from the inside out as opposed to, going from the outside in and being gobbled up. That's kind of my passion. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Fighting against these big mega groups and being a small group, it's a challenge, but I'm up for it. So that's kind of where I want to go in the future, showing that it can be done. And if I came out as a resident and the idea was you can't start a practice, I would have been depressed. I would have been depressed. As you can see, I like being able to be in charge and make decisions. I would have been depressed. So I just want to make sure young docs know that they can still do this if they so choose.
I love that optimistic voice. And
Yeah.
Javan, I'd love to offer you opportunity, or we're asking you perhaps to come back and delve into some of these discussions more, because I can see, talking about practice situations, there's not a lot of people out there saying, hey, private practice is a good thing, you should go for it. But there's tremendous opportunity, and you've highlighted that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Very welcome.
We are going to be sending you one of these Dean's Chat cups, and
Yes.
we've got the special version. Check this out, Javan.
I love that.
Little Bako
Yes.
influence on our coffee mugs.
Oh,
So we will be sending you one of those.
Thank
And
you.
again, you've got an open invitation to always come back to Dean's Chat. Joe, any last words on your end?
No, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us and our audience your experiences, and especially highlighting your passion for young members and how to get involved and how to help, and just supporting a community and not getting siloed. I love it. So I appreciate you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you all for having me. This was amazing. I love what you all are doing, bringing these insights to this podiatric community and just growing it. I think this is a way to remove silos.
Yeah.
This Dean's Chat. So I love what you all are doing. Keep doing it. And
We're more similar than we are different.
Exactly. And I'm here to support this platform any way that I can.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating, or maybe even leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. And until next week, Joe and I will continue to try to bring the very best in podiatric medicine to you. And today was an example with Dr. Bass. Thanks again, Javan.
Thank you.
Cheers.